In 1980, the Paragon Hotel was one of the hottest vacation spots for celebrities and the rich. Eventually, a famous mobster began running shady business out of the place and even invested in it. Not long after, the owner's wife was found dead and the owner vanished. The hotel shut its doors, and when the mobster later died, his entire fortune mysteriously disappeared too. A few months ago, Amanda desperately crawled along the floor of a dark corridor trying to escape. Suddenly, she saw something in front of her and froze in horror. Cut to the present. Diane starts a live stream for her channel, The Creepers. She and her boyfriend Rick announce that today's stunt will be jumping off a moving train. The chat cuts to a short clip of Diane leaping through the train door. A passenger watches in shock and her face is edited in as a joke. That's just part of their intro, and now the duo shows the full behind the scenes as Cora and Vern arrive with a big trash container. All four are in staff uniforms, so security doesn't stop them. Once on the train, they open the container and JD crawls out with their gear. A passenger walks into their car and Rick tells her it's closed, but she ignores him. The team decides to ignore her too and uses tools to force the train door open. They install a metal bar so it can't shut again. After stripping off their uniforms, they jump out of the moving train, landing perfectly just like they practiced. Now they're running on the rails as fast as they can to avoid getting crushed. They sprint to the side and press against the wall just in time. Once the train passes, they head to a big gate and try to open it but fail. Cora climbs the gate and wall, recording everything on her body cam. She opens a vent, crawls through, and reaches the other side so she can unlock the gate for her friends. The group explores a corridor, admiring the graffiti covering every inch of the walls. At the end, they find a piece by the famous artist Basalt. Rick reminds everyone, record but don't touch. They take pictures and videos, but JD starts breaking off a chunk of the Basalt graffiti, ignoring their warnings. Rick tackles him to stop him, and a fight breaks out. Vern pulls them apart, and Rick kicks JD out of the team. JD snaps that he'd rather be rich than a nobody and leaves with a stolen graffiti. Minutes later, they hear guards approaching. They sprint down the tunnel and manage to escape unseen. The next day, Diane checks the uploaded video and sees it only got 82 views. The team is frustrated and out of ideas for getting traction. That's when Rick reveals a surprise. He's got the blueprints of the Paragon Hotel. He's heard the mobster's missing money is still hidden inside. Many people have tried sneaking into the abandoned hotel to find it, but none of them ever came back. The legend says evil lives there and hates visitors. The group gets excited about finding the money, but Rick reminds them of their rule: they only document. Then, Diane takes off her hat to show her new hair color. Rick is stunned silent, which disappoints her. Right then, they get a notification and see that JD has joined a new team. He shows off the stolen graffiti piece in a video and insults the creepers, while the others play Russian roulette. Rick calls them psychos. While the others are distracted, Diane secretly posts that they'll be going to the Paragon. The following night, Vern, Cora, and Rick wait in a motel with their gear, but still no sign of Diane. There's a knock at the door, and Rick opens it to find Frank, a reporter from Vice News. Cora explains he contacted her and she invited him along. Then, Diane finally shows up. Frank explains he wants to watch them crack the Paragon and publish the story. He found out about their plan from Diane's post, and the group gets mad at her for ruining the surprise. Rick thinks bringing a journalist is a bad idea, and Vern suspects Frank is an undercover cop. Diane likes the idea because it could bring the views they need, so they agree to let Frank join them. They leave the motel, but when they reach their van, they realize they forgot extra diesel. Frank offers his car instead, and everyone squeezes into the back. After a long drive along the beach, they reach a gate and cut the lock with a tool. Vern notices a storm coming, so Rick insists they must be out of the tunnels before it starts raining. They can't use the doors or windows of the hotel because they've been sealed, so they head into a sewage tunnel, put on helmets, and walk for a while until they find the narrow passage that leads into the building. It's so tight they have to crawl through, gagging at the horrible smell. Suddenly, they hear a noise and are horrified to see a swarm of rats charging at them. They cover their faces, and Frank climbs on top of Cora to shield her as the rats run over them. Thankfully, the rodents pass through quickly and nobody is hurt. A few minutes later, they emerge from the cramped tunnel and find a sparking power box. The gate they want to use is blocked by a pile of junk. Diane decides to search for a different entrance. Meanwhile, Cora breaks the lock with a tool and opens the gate anyway, causing everything stacked against it to crash down. Now there's enough space to pass, so Cora shouts for Diane to come back. They don't wait for her though. They step through and finally enter the hotel. The group starts recording and snapping pictures while Rick films an intro for the video. As soon as he says the hotel's name, birds suddenly burst from above, slamming into a chandelier and knocking it loose. Cora dodges just in time as the chandelier comes crashing down. Diane, meanwhile, finds her own way in and ends up in a classy room. She immediately starts streaming for her followers. She heads down to the ballroom, playing around on a piano. When Rick calls, she rejects the call to keep her stream clean. Then she hears a strange noise, assumes it's the rats, and starts running. She trips on the stairs, falls, and drops her phone. As she's catching her breath, a creepy hand appears behind her. Rick grows worried when Diane doesn't show up, so he tells the others to search every room. After he runs upstairs, Cora tells Frank that Rick wants a wife, but Diane wants adventure. Rick works at a hardware store and supplies all their gear, so they let him believe he's the leader. Cora notices Frank's wedding ring and asks about his wife, so he shows her a picture of Amanda. Rick cuts the moment short and orders them back to the search. Meanwhile, Vern keeps taking photos and spots claw marks on a wall. He hears a noise and decides to move away, unaware of a shadow darting past behind him. When the group regroups, Vern shows them the picture of the claw marks. Rick says they need to find Diane and get out of there. Cora volunteers to look for a master key. Frank wants to go with her, but Vern doesn't trust him and goes instead. In the lobby, Cora and Vern dig through the reception desk and find a newspaper clipping about the owner's disappearance and his wife's death. The cops kept the details quiet, but rumors say her chest was torn open and her heart was missing. Meanwhile, Rick and Frank keep searching the corridors. Frank asks how Rick met Diane, and Rick says it was in an abandoned mental hospital. His story cuts off when he steps on a bear trap. Frank quickly pries it open. When Vern and Cora return, Vern jumps on Frank thinking he hurt Rick. Frank shoves him against the wall to calm him down, then cleans Rick's wound with water and tapes it up since they have no first aid kit. Cora wants to get Rick to a hospital, but he refuses to leave without Diane. Suddenly, they hear Diane's phone ringing. They follow the sound upstairs and find a huge tree with phones and cameras hanging from its branches. Rick spots Diane's phone and plays her last video. Just as the video reaches the moment where she falls, the battery dies. Then they hear a strange noise. Vern hesitantly suggests calling the cops. Cora agrees, but Rick and Frank say they don't have time to wait. They keep moving when Cora hears another noise. Someone jumps at her and she instinctively throws a punch. Frank pulls a gun and points it at the attacker, who turns out to be JD. Suddenly, JD's new crew storms in and knocks Frank down. Max steals Frank's gun while Todd points his own weapon at the creepers, forcing them to kneel and hand over their phones and gear. Rick accuses them of attacking Diane, but Todd denies it and mocks her. When Todd demands to know where the money is, Cora and Rick fire back with insults. Todd moves closer, describing all the awful things he'll do if they don't cooperate. Cora keeps provoking them, so Mac tries to hit her, but Vern shoves him away. Mac responds by pointing his gun at Vern. Todd forces Cora to stand and shoves the gun in her mouth. Frank blurts out that she doesn't know how to use it. Todd drops Cora and turns the gun on Frank instead, pressuring him to talk. When Frank refuses, Todd threatens Cora again. Finally, Frank confesses he isn't the reporter. Amanda is. She went missing months ago with her photographer while covering a story on the hotel. The cops were useless, so he needed another way in, and Diane's post gave him hope. Todd doesn't care about missing women and keeps insulting them until Cora spits in his face. Todd angrily pulls out a handkerchief to wipe it off, and Rick recognizes it as Diane's. Rick lunges for it, but Todd easily shoves him back and claims he didn't know it belonged to Diane. He casually offers it to Rick, and the moment Rick grabs it, Todd pushes him over the balcony. Rick screams as he plummets into a deep hole in the floor. JD tells Todd he's gone too far, but Todd just slaps him. Then Todd demands the location of the money from Frank. When Frank refuses, Todd hits him too.
Frank explains the money's location was marked on the blueprints, and Rick had the only copy. Todd announces they're going to look for Rick. When they return to the corridor, Cora spots a body on the floor, but a huge hole in the ground blocks them. Some cables hang from the ceiling, so Cora runs, kicks off the wall, and grabs the cables, swinging onto a line of lamps. After a brief pause, she jumps to the next set of cables and spins, landing safely on the other side. She rushes to the body thinking it's Rick, but it's just an old skeleton crawling with bugs. Todd says they'll search elsewhere and shoots the cables so Cora can't follow. As they walk down the corridor, they hear a woman crying and follow the sound into a room. Mac opens a strange wardrobe but finds only clothes. When he turns around, a creepy hand reaches out and touches him, making him jump back. A terrified woman steps out begging for help, and Frank recognizes her as Amanda's photographer, Beth. They hear another eerie noise, and Beth warns that it is coming and everyone is going to die. Mac and Rick put on night vision goggles, kill the flashlights, and close the curtains to scan the room, but see nothing. Then they hear someone choking and getting hit. They turn around and see JD dead, impaled on the wall with a metal bar shoved through his mouth. In the darkness, something monstrous darts around them. Mac and Todd fire wildly, but don't hit anything, and Todd runs out of ammo. Eventually, the creature gives up and crawls along the wall, escaping through a hole in the ceiling. When they turn the flashlights back on, they realize a stray bullet has killed Beth. Meanwhile, Diane wakes up on a bed in the penthouse master bedroom. Candles surround her, and a satanic pentagram is drawn on the floor. She runs to the door, but it won't open. At the same time, Cora hears a door being pushed somewhere else and follows the noise into a plain room which slams shut behind her. Something brushes her ankle, startling her, but it's only Rick hiding under the bed. More strange sounds echo around them, so Cora hides in the closet while Rick stays under the bed. The monster enters, and Cora notices it looks like a very pale human. It opens the closet and peers inside, but Cora is hanging from the ceiling. When it finally looks up, Rick smashes it from behind with a wooden plank. The creature grabs Rick by the neck and flings him across the room, giving Cora a chance to run. She sprints to the elevator and frantically presses every button, but nothing happens. The monster reaches through the bars and grabs her arm. Cora struggles free and steps back out of reach, then slams a lever to restore power, and the elevator finally rattles to life. On the next floor, she runs down a corridor trying door after door until one opens. Inside, she finds a wall of security monitors showing Amanda tied to a chair and Diane in the master bedroom. Cora notices a pile of VHS tapes and one tape with strange symbols on the label. She plays it, watching minutes of static before a human-shaped shadow appears. A creepy voice says a powerful secret was shared with him so he could become more than a foolish man. The footage shifts to a recording of the owner's wife being murdered and her heart being ripped out. At the same time, Diane searches the bedroom and finds a book titled His Dark Majesty. There is a dedication from the mobster to the owner's wife, claiming the book can grant her great power, but also great pain. The text describes a ritual to channel forbidden shadow alchemy, using words like satanic and ungodly. The illustrations show a terrifying monster devouring people and a human transforming into a beast. Another drawing shows the creature eating a human heart. Both the book and the tape explain that by eating a mortal's sacred heart, the chosen one gains supernatural strength.
Meanwhile, Todd and Mac race around the hotel until they find an open room riddled with bullet holes. To their shock, money pours out of a wardrobe. Todd rushes to scoop it up while Mac looks around and finds a skeleton on the floor with its chest split open and rats feeding on it. Mac decides the money isn't worth it and bolts. When Mac reaches the stairs, he hears the monster and opens fire, but it quickly slips away. He keeps running and hits a wire tied across the doorway, slicing his neck. He collapses, slowly bleeding out. Back in the room, Todd tries to escape with the cash, but the monster blocks his path. It hoists him by the neck and plunges its long nails into his chest, ripping out his heart. After Todd falls dead, the creature eats it. While Cora watches bodies pile up on the monitors, Diane keeps reading. The book says the final transformation from man to beast happens when the Dark Lord is offered the union of two souls who want to become one. Then the man-beast will enjoy eternal life. Diane notices a wedding dress laid out on a chair and realizes the creature wants to use her for this final ritual. Suddenly, the monster appears behind her and gently strokes her face. On the stairs, Frank and Vern hear a voice. They rush down and nearly run straight into the same wire but stop in time. Mac's body lies on the floor with a hole in his chest, and the voice is coming from his gear bag. Vern finds a walkie-talkie and finally connects with Cora, who screams at them to run because she sees the monster coming. Frank and Vern sprint to the kitchen, slam the door, and grab a knife. Cora tells them they can escape using the dumbwaiter. They press the button, but nothing happens, so they'll have to move it manually. Vern climbs in first and hauls on the rope, slowly lifting himself up. After a struggle, he reaches the top and Cora helps him out. Now, Frank has to bring the dumbwaiter back down. As the monster pounds on the door, Frank gets inside and pulls himself up. The creature finally bursts into the kitchen, so Frank speeds up. When he glances down through the floor of the dumbwaiter, he sees the monster climbing up the shaft after him. As its hands reach inside, Frank yells for Vern to cut the rope and jumps out. The dumbwaiter plummets down, dragging the monster with it. Afterward, Vern calls Frank on the walkie-talkie, and Frank confirms he's okay. He jumped to another floor. They agree to meet in the penthouse. Before that, Frank returns to the tree of phones and retrieves Amanda's phone, the one with their initials carved on the back because he gave it to her as a gift. Cora gives him the right room number, and Frank kicks the door open to find Amanda dead in a chair with a hole in her chest. He kisses her and gently covers her with his jacket before leaving. Frank then reunites with Vern and Cora, who tell him where Diane is. They're shocked to see the monster survived the fall, so Frank volunteers to go after Diane. In the master bedroom, Diane is now wearing the dress and approaches the creature, pretending to be calm and friendly. Once it's distracted, she smashes it with the book and runs. The monster charges after her. In the corridor, Frank is still struggling to find the right door. Hearing Diane's screams, he follows the sound and spots the monster dragging her by the hair. Frank sprints toward them and tackles the creature, sending both of them over the balcony. The monster is impaled on a tree branch, and Frank slams into the floor below, killing them both. Diane grabs the walkie-talkie and asks Cora about Rick. Cora tells her what happened and gives her the room number. Diane races there and finds Rick lying on the floor. She breaks down, thinking he's dead, but he suddenly wakes up. The four friends reunite in relief. Sometime later, the creepers are all over the news for finding the mobster's money, inspiring a wave of urban explorers. Their Paragon Hotel video hits 100 million views and even gets comments from celebrities. For their next adventure, Cora dyes her hair blonde. Rick opens a bag and reveals he secretly kept a little of the money, saying a small cut won't hurt their code.